On February 26, 1959, Soviet searchers found a tent on a slope called Dead Mountain, slashed open from the inside, containing all the hikers' boots and warm clothes, but no people.
Wait, they ran out into a Siberian blizzard in just their socks? That's a literal death sentence.
It gets worse. Some were found 1.5 miles away in their underwear, while others had massive internal crush injuries equivalent to a high-speed car crash, yet not a single bruise on their skin.
Okay, you have my attention. What on earth happened at Dyatlov Pass?
This story starts with Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student who led a group of 9 other experienced hikers from the Ural Polytechnical Institute. They were absolute pros, attempting a Category 3 trek, which was the most difficult rating the Soviet Union had at the time.
So these weren't some amateurs who got lost in the woods. They knew exactly what they were doing.
Exactly. They were heading for Otorten Mountain in the northern Urals, a place so remote the only locals were the indigenous Mansi people. One hiker, Yuri Yudin, actually turned back early because of joint pain, making him the luckiest man in the USSR.
Talk about a golden ticket. Why did the rest of them end up on Dead Mountain instead of their target?
On February 1st, a massive snowstorm hit, and they lost their visibility. They veered off course and decided to pitch their tent right on the exposed slope of Kolatsiakal rather than retreating to the tree line for cover.
So the storm hits. They're in the tent and then what? Something makes them slice through the canvas and run for their lives.
That's the million-dollar question. When the search parties finally arrived weeks later, they found a trail of footprints leading downhill toward the forest. They found the first 2 bodies under a giant cedar tree, dressed only in shirts and underpants, with their hands burned from a small fire.
Hypothermia can cause paradoxical undressing, where your brain thinks you're burning up, right? But what about those car crash injuries you mentioned?
Those were found months later in May, when the snow melted. 4 more hikers were discovered at the bottom of a ravine, buried under 15 feet of snow.
And these are the ones with the internal damage?
Yes, Nikolai Thibault-Brignoles had a fractured skull, and Lyudmila Dubinina had her ribs snapped like matchsticks. Most disturbingly, Lyudmila was missing her tongue and her eyes.
That sounds like a straight-up horror movie. Was it an animal attack? Or the Mansi people defending their land?
The investigators ruled out both. There were no other footprints in the snow, and the force required to crush those ribs without bruising the skin is almost impossible for a human or animal to pull off. Plus, some of their clothes were radioactive.
Radioactive? Alex, you can't just drop radiation and missing tongues and tell me it was just a hiking accident.
Well, the Soviet government didn't help. They closed the case in 3 months, citing a compelling natural force as the cause of death. That vague phrasing birthed 60 years of conspiracy theories involving secret weapons tests, UFOs, and even a Soviet Yeti.
I can see why. If the government shuts it down that fast, people are going to assume a cover-up. But did we ever get a real answer?
Recently, yes. In 2021, researchers used new computer modeling, originally designed for Hollywood snow effects in movies like Frozen, to show that a rare slab avalanche likely occurred.
A slab avalanche? That doesn't sound nearly as dramatic as a secret missile test.
It's terrifying in its own way. A heavy block of snow could have slid down the slope and crushed the hikers while they were sleeping in the tent. It explains the broken ribs and why they panicked, cut their way out, and fled into the dark, thinking the whole mountain was coming down.
But does it explain the radiation or the missing tongue?
The radiation was likely from laboratory dust at their university, and the missing tongue was sadly just the result of decomposition and small animals in the stream where they were found. It's a case where science finally caught up to the mystery.
It's almost sadder that way. 9 experts did everything right, but a freak quirk of physics took them out.
It serves as the ultimate reminder of how thin the line is between a successful adventure and a total disaster when you're at the mercy of the wilderness.
So, after all the talk of aliens and spies, what's the one thing to remember about Dyatlov Pass?
It remains the ultimate cautionary tale of how nature can be both silent and violently unpredictable, turning a routine expedition into a permanent enigma.
That's Wikipedia. Every story on demand. Search your next topic at wikipedia.ai.